There's the lake
the opportunity to join. When I click, it just says, lists all the people in room 2, but it doesn't give me, and it says I haven't joined, but it doesn't give me the opportunity to join.
So you have to hover your cursor on room where it says room 2, and then where it says the number of total participants.
Yeah.
And then the number will change to join, and you need to click that.
Yeah, that worked. Thank you. I think that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so we have Edmundo here as the curator for our new session. Edmundo, are you? I saw you were here. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Am I in the right room?
Yes, you are. Please.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so there are some things that I have to click here. Well, let me know when I should start, or is it now? Hello.
Hi, Edmundo. Yeah, we have our first presenters here. You're here as well as our youth envoy. So please go ahead. Let's get started. We are about 10 minutes behind. So go ahead. The floor is yours, Edmundo.
Okay. Thank you, Alex, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Edmundo Werner. I see some familiar faces on the screen, not all. I worked for many years with the United Nations. Those who happen to know me probably know from there. Now I am with the London South Bank University. So I thank the Urban Economy Forum for the opportunity to curate this session with such a distinguished panel of speakers and such an important forum. The topic is broad. It includes the environment, and it also includes sustainability, which is another level. In my opinion, sustainability also includes the environment, but we can discuss this later. I leave it also to you to think about it. The members of the panel are high profile in their respective areas of workers or work. There are presenters from the public sector, from the private for-profit sector, not-for-profit academia, professional associations from different countries. So the topic is broad, but it will be covered through many different perspectives. And I think we will have a very exciting session. I'm conscious of time, and it has been mentioned already. Each speaker has 5 minutes. If you can please stick to the 5 minutes, or even try to be a bit shorter. And if not, I will have to kindly remind you, because we are already running behind. So to start from my list, we have 3 speakers together as speaker 1. Zahin Razin, Mariama Jamboni, and Yadit Singhal. They are representatives of United Nations Secretary General's Envoy on Youth at the Office of the UN Secretary General's Envoy of Youth. So Zahin, Mariana, and Edith, are you there? If you have 15 minutes altogether, so please organize yourselves to deliver in 15 minutes. Are you there?
Sorry, can you wave your hands here, just so I can unmute?
Udit, Zahin, and
Yes.
Mariama?
Yes.
Yes, we are there.
So So Zahin is not there?
Yes.
So
Zahin.
Mariama, you're the next one in my list, so please go ahead.
So I'm there. Rasin?
Okay, go ahead, Razari.
Oh, sorry.
I can't see.
That's.
But anyway,
that's me.
Zahin, yes, please go ahead.
Right.
5 minutes
every-
or less, please.
Yeah. Yes. Totally noted. So hey everyone. I'm going to be talking about this topic about how you can combine hydroeconomic and water quality modeling for optimal management of water. So we all know water is fundamentally a commodity, but is also subject to institutional restriction, management rules, rights, and hydrology. So these components are often complicated and interrelated. Tech giants like IBM, Cisco, Microsoft are inaugurating a new era of smart water grid that now brings the attention to hydroeconomics of water. So hydroeconomic modeling of the agricultural economy, groundwater, and surface water systems critically is important to stimulate potential transition paths to sustainable management of water for urban cities. Effective tools to support water management decisions require the integration of underlying physical and social sciences. These can be done by understanding urban water systems and the issue it entails. Knowing the perspective in terms of the factors affecting drinking water and human well-being, and how it's linked to climate change ecosystem, as well as the socioeconomic aspect of it. This will essentially aid in capturing the complexity of water users, economic decisions, and the physical constraints of water system. This modeling approach allows economic objectives to drive water management decisions. That is again kind of subject to constraints of the hydrologic systems flows and the balance as a whole. So I also run this R&D upstart. It's called HydroCo Plus. I started that while I was studying at university. I'm recently graduated. So it's a hydroinformatics research upstart that uses machine intelligence to optimize water management in terms and security. So Dhaka, where I'm from currently and I'm based, is one of the densely populated cities in the world. It has around 30,000 people per square kilometer. And the population of Dhaka city at the moment is 30 million. So it's a very water stressed city and it's also an emerging megacity. So the only way you can optimize water quality in terms of water anomaly detection, event forecasting, demand prediction, and leakage identification is by building a decision support system for real-time water management. So I'll be sharing the screen to show you what we've built. We've essentially deployed a sensor that goes into water pipelines. Can everyone see the screen? Yeah. So that is essentially a multi-parameter water quality monitoring system. These are essentially spectrophotometers that go into flow sensors. These flow sensors is then appended to a pipeline. Through this, you're able to transmit telemetric data in terms of water quality indexes, according to the World Health Organization's calibrated water parameters. And then essentially you're able to transmit it to phones, desktops, wherever, so you can monitor everything in real time. So the idea is, that's the idea of what we have deployed currently. You can see a host of water parameters that are there. In terms of all the parameters that is needed to ensure that water quality can be drinkable. You can then use time series clusters to forecast events, and then also use training data to create alarm systems of for future event predictions.
What?
So the idea is to be able to build a systems architecture that can essentially, through the like a large-scale deployment of this, that you'd be able to take all these real-time decisions in terms of lab diagnostics, geolocation of water leakages, where the sources of anomalies are coming from, and then finally, essentially being able to kind of forecast water demand and also predict where it's coming from. So ultimately, having worked as a field engineer, my trade is in mathematics, but having worked as a field engineer in hydroinformatics, I realized—
One more minute, please, Zahin.
Yeah,
One more
Yeah,
minute.
so I'm pretty much done. Thank you. So urban water management is like solving a Rubik's Cube. Even if you solve the entire cube with one odd color, it cancels out the effect. So the only way you can kind of work towards hydroeconomic modeling and collective water management is through kind of working with other parallel bodies such as the energy sector to come to a collective action. So thank you. That's me done. Cheers.
Thanks, Zahin. Now, Mariam, you're together with Zahim in the first set. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Edmundo, and thank you for this invitation. And it's so great to be here with my fellow young leaders for the SDGs and all the experts. And the demographic explosion has generated many imbalances, and it's about, sorry. Yes. And
hello?
Hello, you are hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
Yes, and a very aggressive urbanization process, no longer taking into account the realities and furthermore the environment. And urban population and their environment affect each other because people in urban areas change their environment through their consumption of food, water, energy, and land. And the polluted urban environment in turn affect the health and quality of life of urban population. And the urban environment is an important factor influencing the quality of life in urban areas. And some environmental problems includes inadequate water or sanitation, the lack of garbage collection, and the industrial pollution. And talking about sustainable urban planning, this is a process and a progress approach that challenges professional practices, political leaders, and local actors, including residents. The learning of eco-responsible behaviors by the city's actors, and in particular the inhabitants, remains a key issue for real control of resources and uses in the city. And today, COVID-19 revealed the limits of urbanization in cities. So we need to reconsider the cities and focus on the environment and the well-being of populations when making decisions. And we need to implement policies that allows us to build adapted and sustainable housing using mainly local resources. And this may include locally available materials, local workers, and this is a good way to involve the different actors in the city and to keep the economy alive at the same time. And it's possible to choose building materials with a very low environmental footprint for our building. And this will help to reduce the energy consumption due to construction. And also this housing must be complemented by a resilient infrastructure that takes into account the different needs of population. I mean, all about health, work, recreation, and in order to ensure their well-being. So everything is not lost because 30% of the areas that will be urbanized in 2030 are not yet built. So we still have an opportunity to help the urban power to integrate into the economy and to preserve the hard-won gains of development for future generations. And we can do this by making cities more resilient, inclusive, safe, and diverse. This is the gateway to a sustainable transformation of our cities and communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mariama. Very interesting presentation on local resources. Now, Judith, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you, Edmundo, for the introduction. The title of my presentation is going to be The Mantras to Deal with an Urban Crisis. As we all know today, pollutants are an unseen enemy that have threatened life on our planet. this is the time now more than ever for us to act. And I think standing by idly can have disastrous consequences. Proactive action needs to be seeded. And I believe there is no better way but to start at home. It is my belief that my 2-year journey with Glass to Sand, for which I am a founder of, is proof of concept that keen observation and determination to act can be the 2 pillars of a catalytic approach to keep our planet habitable for future generations. Delhi is unfortunately battling a growing glass waste crisis. Glass, as we all know, despite being recyclable and reusable, is not segregated anymore and actively goes for dumping with all other solid waste into the landfill space, which is already scarce. It won't decompose for 1 million years, which is quite a pity. I was alerted to this situation when I chanced upon a large cache of empty glass bottles at home. And these were usually prized by our support staff. I invoked my pillar of observation, as I said, and concluded that empty glass waste had been rendered worthless. Rising emissions had forced the waste processing plants to be relocated away from the city, the capital, which is Delhi. And the waste collection aggregators of the informal sectors, the kabaris as we refer to them, needed to set up large storage spaces and bear the consequently high costs of transportation. This was what rendered collection unviable. Invoking my pillar of determination to act, I founded Glass to Sand, which is an environmentally friendly zero waste ecosystem that could control the menace posed by the growing menace of glass waste. Crushing these glass empties into silica-rich sand under high safety standards made sure that a waste that would otherwise be dumped into the landfill is converted into a commercially valuable byproduct. This facilitated for us a revenue stream to defray the costs so that this modest sustainable initiative that I run wouldn't remain solely dependent on grants and subsidies. An awareness of this glass waste has been created over the past 2 years, and this is so that it can be nipped in the bud. And it is also because we don't want it to assume gigantic proportions. As a school student, trying to drive the change isn't always taken seriously. I am 18 years old currently, and I have faced many roadblocks across my journey. The roadblocks that appeared in my journey weren't just because of the red tape. In these challenging times, it was, I believe, my thoughts of positivity that pushed me to muster the courage, so to say, to maneuver through these hurdles, to chart the way forward. And it is thankfully the 2 pillars or the mantras that I swear by that help me contribute a solution to a crisis. When I started, I didn't believe that I could change anything or leave behind a lasting impact. This initiative was only a modest attempt in my own small capacity to make a difference in my immediate community. And with my honest intent, I was able to present a new perspective. Self-belief for me is key. Having observed the need to change, it is important to carry the conviction to follow the idea through. And persistence and perseverance are 2 things that helped me in my journey. By leveraging technology, I was able to build a volunteer network. And by doing this, I freed my initiative from the exploitative clutches of the waste aggregators. There is, unfortunately, a mafia, and within the first few months of operation, the Kabari dropped the offer price for empty glass bottles by 50%. It counts towards achievement when the very people who overlooked your attempt to carve solutions to start to engage with you in discussion. You have to make others hear you. This is what I have learned. And you can't just wait for something to happen. You have to take a proactive stance, because unless you're Newton, it's unlikely that an apple is going to fall on your head, and opportunities don't, so to say, magically appear. You have to lead the way, and you have to lead them your way. All it really takes in the end is a simple combination, in my opinion, of the right attitude, the positive ideas, and the ability to build synergy.
Sorry, Udit, can you please conclude?
I am wrapping up, yes. All it takes in the end is a simple combination of the right attitude, positive ideas, and the ability to build synergies to create a collective approach. And this is something that I strongly believe in to master the recipe to success. I think we all can collectively come together to help improve the environment and to help reduce the waste that is around us. Here's to a cleaner and greener environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Udit. Okay, so we had the three speakers in the first slot, fresh presentations from the youth, representatives of the United Nations Secretary General's Envoy on Youth. Next, Sara Kandirachi, Associate Director at ARUP, Lead Inclusive and Resilient Cities. Sara.
Hi, everyone. Good
morning. Yes, you have the floor, please.
Thank you. I have a brief presentation, if I can share.
Do you have permission to share, Sarah? Yep.
Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, as Edmundo mentioned, this is quite a broad topic, and so the way I try to approach it is basically to use these 5 minutes to basically explore 3 priority areas or entry points that national and local authorities and also private sector and urban practitioners should consider to make the best use of urban resources and also to accelerate the transition to a resilient and inclusive lower carbon future. So the first priority is to invest in a green urban recovery. So we are all aware of the impact of COVID-19 had on global economy, on our society, and in particular on the most vulnerable groups, and of course on our personal life. So as we know, I mean, unemployment, pressure on stretched public services, and inequalities are only few aspects that COVID-19 has contributed to make worse, or that has brought to our attention. Based on a study that was funded by ARUP sorry, let me go back. So based on a study that was conducted by the Coalition for Urban Transition that was funded by ARUP through the Resilience Shift, it's clear that the government authorities have 3 key priorities they have to address in the short term. One is to create jobs, one is to increase equity, and the other one is to strengthen resilience. So this research has identified key areas for investment to create and protect, to create and generate millions of jobs, and also to deliver inclusive economic and also health and environmental benefit for the society. So in order to create a low carbon, to create more opportunities for a green urban recovery, we need to invest in green construction. So we need to build buildings that are low carbon. We need to promote clean and shared mobility to support the connection, accessibility to cities. We need to invest in renewable energy and electrification. Also, we need to foster active transport, so including pedestrian and cycling schemes. And also, we need to invest in nature-based solution. and most importantly on promoting a circular economy to basically reduce waste. So another key aspect where I think is important to invest as in terms of urban resources are people, because we need to make sure that our society is aware of the collective intelligence that exists, the collective resources that exist, and we need to be aware on how we can use those to move forward. I think the COVID experience has helped to create this kind of new conscious across the society, this new sense of solidarity that I think is quite unique. So in terms of urban planning as an approach, we need to put people at the center of urban design and city planning. In particular, we need to focus on most vulnerable groups, and particular children and the early population who has been the most affected by this pandemic. So we conducted research a couple of years ago across 40 cities around the world, and we saw that where cities have put in place measures to have a child-centered approach to planning, there are actually this approach has generated benefits for the entire society.
1 minute, please.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, no problem. So basically, this approach to design, to child-centered design and planning, has actually an effective catalyst response to different competing priorities and agendas, including safety, green and clean environment, and also to promote local economy. And also, by making spaces child responses, we can contribute to create healthy habits. We can generate community cohesion and build climate resilience infrastructure. For instance, this intervention in Copenhagen that is a floodable public park. And then the last entry point that is increasingly important is to invest in public spaces and services, because as we know, COVID has undermined the benefit of public space and is increasing pressure on public services and facilities, in particular the healthcare sector that is already very stretched. So we need to basically change the approach to planning and design, and moving from an individualistic and selective way of planning to a more inclusive way of planning, where good design is put also at the core of this approach. And just to conclude, so I think that the COVID-19, as I think we all agree, has been a wake-up call for all of us. And can be considered as a test for the next challenge that will come, and that will come if we don't change the way we live, the way we plan our cities, the way we make business and consume. So COVID is offering an opportunity to choose a better path, a different way of living, and to make cities more inclusive, healthy, resilient. But this window is creating a lot of hope, but is unfortunately narrowed down as the lockdown measures are relaxing. So it's our responsibility as urban practitioner or government authorities actually to
Can
be
you please conclude?
opportunistic,
Sorry.
and strategic in this approach. So basically to make the best use of resources. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. A very interesting presentation combining clean environmental issues with participation and also employment. That's what it's called generally green jobs approach. But there are, of course, other terms. But I have this difficult job here, which is to cut people. And it would be wonderful if we could have more time, but we don't. So I would like to call the next speaker, Hannah Kabir, renewable energy professional at Creed's Energy Limited. And talking about limited, Hannah, please limit yourself to 5 minutes or less if possible. Thank you. Hannah?
Thank you, Edmundo.
Yeah, the floor is yours.
I would like to share my screen, please. I have a presentation.
5 minutes, please.
Sure. So I'm speaking today on decentralized energy access for sustainable development. And basically, in sub-Saharan Africa, we have over 600 million people that are without access to energy. In Nigeria, This is the largest deficit we see next to India and Democratic Republic of Congo is in Nigeria, with 85 million people having no access to electricity. And the divide is even more between the urban and the rural areas, where only 23% in the rural areas have access to electricity. In terms of energy needs and use profile, when we consider the tiered multi-layer framework, we see that most of the energy services and needs for rural areas fall under tier 1 to 3, and in urban areas mostly from tier 3 to 5. And these can easily be remedied by renewable energy solutions with solar products, standalone systems, and mini grids. In terms of the possibilities for scaling access to electricity, we can either decide to continue to invest in centralized grids, or move towards a more decentralized approach where we're extending the grid, but also providing access to energy through off-grid solutions that are individual solutions, such as the standalone systems, or the collective ones, such as the mini grids. Nigeria is also known mostly for its self-generation using fuel generators. We're one of the largest oil-producing countries in the world, and we do generate electricity from gas. However, this is also one that comes with the attendant emissions and the gas flarings. So in terms of comparison of options between main grid, mini grid, solar home systems, and the self-generation, this provides a cost comparison on both the cost, the availability, and ability to support productive use. So what we see here is mostly that in terms of cost, the highest cost will be the main grid, whereas the minimal cost options will be the mini grids, the solar home systems, and of course the diesel generators. So what sort of models have been tried out in other countries across Africa in terms of energy provision and inclusive growth within rural communities include the Keymaker model, which is one of the models that has been tried out in Jumeme in Tanzania. And this is enabling local production and processing within the local communities before moving the goods to the urban areas or for international trade. What this does is that it enables the rural community to benefit more from the trade of their produce. Secondly, we have seen that in Sierra Leone, the Rural Renewable Energy Project, which came out of as a result of the Ebola crisis, strengthened health centers in rural communities by providing mini grids that provide electricity to these health centers. It then went further to extend this electricity to households, schools, and small businesses across the communities, across 94 communities. And in essence, it's adding to the access to electricity, strengthening the healthcare provision and the collaborative efforts between government and private sector. Then in Nigeria, we also see such collaborations where you have donor agencies and private companies coming together to build mini grids across different communities. So in essence, sustainable energy provision will emerge from a mix of various technologies, both on-grid and off-grid, and it will be left to countries like mine and other developing countries to decide what works best for them in terms of resource allocation and efficient resource use. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hannah, for this very interesting presentation as well, bringing Africa to the fore and examples from different countries. Okay, well, this session, as you know, it's about resources, And the next speaker is from the World Resources Institute. He is the Director of Urban Development, Roger van den Berg. Roger, the floor is yours in 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Edmundo. You can hear me?
Yes.
All right, and you can see my screen. I'm sharing my screen.
New urban water resilience.
Exactly, thank you, Edmundo. I'm very happy to be here and to say briefly something about kind of a new urban water resilience approach. I mean, really talking about water as the scarce resource of cities and urban development opportunities, actually hampering urban development opportunities. I'm leading the urban development work in the World Resources Institute, and we are think and do tank. So we work on the ground and we develop research to influence policy and decision making. On water risks, so the World Economic Forum identified water risk, the 5th global risk in terms of impact, just after climate action failure, extreme weather, even weapons of mass destruction. So, I mean, a lot of these kind of key risks, biodiversity loss, extreme weather, climate action, and water crisis are interrelated. Looking at the kind of the risk mapping that we did through our World Resources Institute aqueduct tool, you see that in Africa, pretty much every region, except from the central region, has cities facing medium to high water risk. And that will lead to more day zeros, as we've seen in Cape Town in 2018. That also will lead to kind of regular flooding that we already see on a seasonal basis in the city of Accra. And now we see in the current pandemic that the poor and the vulnerable, they face the brunt of the pandemic, not having access to the scarce resource in cities, which is water for sanitation and hygiene. So looking at the water program, urban water resilience program that we are conducting now in Africa, we have a lot of lessons to learn. We are currently conducting research on the urban water resilience challenges, very much from a very systematic approach. We see that less than 25% of the urban population in sub-Saharan Africa has access to safely managed water. And we see that the service gap between the provisional water and growing urban population is widening. But there is also an opportunity. Most cities in Africa are yet to be built. That means that we really can innovate and we can build novel coalitions. But we need to think and manage regionally because cities compete with other sectors for water, and unplanned growth destroys natural water systems. So getting water right is a critical step towards the trajectory of higher productivity and health in cities. So, and as I said, we do this through a kind of systemic approach, building these new coalitions around solutions, integrated solutions, but very much looking both at the water supply side as well as the water resource management side. And surprisingly, the whole water sector, I thought one sector was one sector, but the water sector is scattered across different departments, across water utility operators, across local and national authorities. So getting that right is a complex issue. And we develop these kind of new solutions and new governance principles through the Urban Water Resilience Program in Africa. Another key element of that approach is to really look at cities through a spatial lens. Many cities have outgrown their administrative boundaries. Cities becoming city regional complex systems. And we also look at the basin level, because cities depend on water resources that are available in the basin. So how do you bring these things together, both kind of urban patterns, urban development, urban growth, vegetation loss, and water resource management is key to the project. As I already said, water resource management, growth of cities, and a systemic approach about planning, it's been mentioned already earlier in the discussions, is key. So we're not only looking at the kind of water as a resource, water as a scarce resource for citizens, but we also look at potential linkages with kind of nature-based solutions and building inner, nearby, and far away forests through this kind of new perspective. So that means actually to really go from a kind of supply side approach, a water supply.
1 minute, please.
Yes, I'm almost. It means that we need to move from a water supply approach to a much more kind of integrated urban water resilience approach, which includes kind of risk-informed land and water resource management, climate resilience, and a kind of a coordinated water governance approach. So we will present the findings of the first part of our urban water resilience approach at the Adaptation Summit in January. And we are looking for partners, adding to the group that we already have to scale this approach to develop a Pan-African approach to resolve, as I already said, the scarce resource of cities that will hamper urban development, which is water. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Roger. Well, water is key, and I think I cannot emphasize more. And the water management is crucial. Some cities, as we know, have droughts, others have floods. How to get it the right measure. But anyway, I will stop here and invite the next speaker, Jian Hassanpour, from the Scientific Committee of the College of Spatial Planning. Jian. Hello, Jian. The floor is yours. 5 minutes, please. You have to unmute your mic.
Okay. Do you have my voice?
Yes.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. At first, I'm working. I told them I'm working at the Special Planning College in University of Dohuk in north of the Iraq, in Dohuk City. And my speeches are related to the survey that I had is the last year, is 1.5 years ago, and the part of that is related to that one. And ladies and gentlemen, and first I would like to thank the organizer of this conference. I wanted to start with a question. Can urban economic development be a factor in the instability of the environment and natural resources? The debate over the environment and the sustainable urban resources is very broad and can be explored from hundreds of the different perspectives. As everyone knows, and the countries are divided into the three categories in the term of the economic development: developed, developing, and least developed countries. These countries, according to their economic development, there is a difference in the amount of their environmental and natural resources degradations. What's the purpose of the economic development? The goals of the economic development are to increase the wealth and the well-being of the people of the society and eradicate poverty, and to create employment that is in line with the social justice. How these goals can be achieved? By increasing the use of the resources and factors such as increasing capital, labors, and cheap raw materials, increasing the efficiency of the economy by increasing the productivity of the factor of the production, and utilizing potential capacities in the economy. Economic development will be achieved through growth along an increase in the production capacity, including the maximum use of the human and natural resource capacity, resulting in slight increase in production. Developed countries with the highest production growth have the largest share in the instability and destructiveness of the resources on top. With scientific management, the use of advanced science and careful planning, they have been able to continue the instability of the environment. It should be noted that the government of the developed countries pay the most for the sustainability of the environment and the natural resources from the taxes of the people. In developing country, economic development planning is generally done by the government, and every government in these countries tries to show up any achievements done under their effort. So they increase the speed of the economic development. These speeds create weakness in the basis of the sustainable development and lack of the prepared management in the planning. As a result, they cause irreparable damage to the environmental and natural resources. The instability is evident in most developed countries, especially in Middle East, Central Asia, and Africa. In least developed countries, due to the lack of the planning and training on method to achieve sustainable development and inequality at all levels of the society, it can be said that both the government and the people have a great role to play in the instability of the environmental and the natural resources. 1 minute, please. Okay, in these countries, everyone will use and abuse the environmental and natural resources in their own way and program. Okay, what we should do? I think there is a need for a global consensus, and you said probably say, and that there is a consensus right now between the government and the United Nations. Yes, there is, but this is the result have been poor, and it's been inactive in the political dispute between the countries. In my opinion, this consensus should be between the local environmental non-profit organization of the countries, universities, specialists, and scientists and social activists. They should be strongest with the financial and the scientific support so that they can pursue the global goals of the sustainable development in their countries with power. Finally, can you please conclude? Yeah, finally, in my opinion, the United Nations and should end its policy of the allocating funds to the governments, their affiliated organization and non-profit organization affiliated with the rulers of the countries. The United Nations must identify and strengthen active non-profit organization made up of the people, educated people and scientists to achieve the goal of the sustainable development more quickly. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for making the connection between the environment and the economy more explicit with details. Let's move now to David Miller, Director of International Diplomacy in the C40 and former Mayor of Toronto. For Toronto in the forefront again. David, are you there?
I'm here, yes. Thank you, Edmundo. Thank you to the organizers, and thank you, colleagues, for some very interesting presentations. I've been asked to speak today for 5 minutes or less. Edmundo, I will follow the rules. A little bit about the C40 cities' work on climate change, social justice, and a just and green recovery from COVID. It's a challenging task in 5 minutes, but I'll try to give the headlines. First of all, for those who haven't worked with C40 cities, it's important to understand who the organization is and what its goals are. C40 Cities was founded in 2005 by then London Mayor Ken Livingstone as an organization of the world's major cities working together to fight climate change, based on the philosophy that the actions and the words of the mayors of the world's major cities could help significantly make change, and on the idea that if the major cities can break ground, it will free up other urban actors to do the right thing. And since 2005, there's some very significant accomplishments. One example I'd like to draw people's attention to is after Paris, which had a 2-degree ambition, a higher ambition of 1.5 degrees, C40 cities at the summit in Mexico, their next summit in Mexico, agreed that their ambition would be 1.5 degrees. It became a condition of membership. And as of the end of this year, about 60 of our cities will have plans to get to 1.5 degrees. And over 50 of those cities will have peaked their greenhouse gas emissions, including Toronto, which is now as a result of a Paris compliant plan, 33% below greenhouse gas emissions, judging on 1990 levels. So cities' actions themselves are making significant change. They're generally in the areas of how we heat and cool buildings, transportation, how we generate our electricity, and how we manage our waste, as many of the presentations have been about. But of course, our mayors this year have faced a unique challenge in COVID. And under the leadership of Mayor Sala of Milano, C40 struck Mayor's Task Force. The chair of the organization is Mayor Garcetti from Los Angeles, a terrific climate leader. Mayor Sala chaired this task force to do two things: to share knowledge and showcase what major cities were doing to address COVID recovery in a way that was green and just, and to also set the principles for national action and ensure that national stimulus programs were also green and just. So what are cities doing? For example, Seoul, Korea, as part of their economic recovery from COVID, is investing heavily in energy retrofits of buildings to lower emissions, make the buildings better places to live, and create 20,000 jobs. Los Angeles, Toronto, and others have worked significantly, rapidly to house street-involved homeless people. Lisbon, Portugal, in order to address transportation impacts, both from a cost and emissions perspective, has started a very innovative program that essentially takes short-term rental housing, i.e. Airbnb, and repurpose it for long-term affordable housing for working people to live right in the city and not be forced to live outside the city to transport for work. A really, really interesting and innovative actions. A lot around the 15-minute city, repurposing roads for people and cycling and public transport, much, much more. And the report's on our website at c40.org. Finally, the mayors have called to national governments with a very strong set of principles. And in the interest of time, I'll just mention a couple. The recovery should not be a return to business as usual, because that means that the world will be on track for 3 degrees more of overheating. And it's very clear that people appreciate we're in the middle of one crisis. It has to be solved in a way that solves another. They've also called on national governments to end fossil fuel subsidies and invest that significant money in a green and just recovery. I think I'll stop there, but it's clear that the actions of these cities and the details of how they've accomplished them have opened room for smaller and city towns to act in the same way, and therefore for national governments to know that they're on solid ground when they address climate change in an equitable way, which is essential if we're going to reach our goals. Thanks very much for the time and attention. I look forward to the comments of other colleagues.
Many thanks, David, for this important perspective. The C40 network is very important and powerful, and these are global cities, and they have an important share in the country's economy and also population. If they steer the countries and the world in the right direction, they make a very valuable contribution, and thanks for the examples. Now let me please call the next speaker. Beth McMahon, President of Canadian Institute of Planners. Beth, you have the floor, please, 5 minutes.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you. So just a clarification, I'm the CEO of the Canadian Institute of Planners, not the president, because that's an elected position.
Okay,
anyways,
thank you. I was just reading from the notes they gave me. Sorry.
No,
go ahead,
no
please.
Worries, no worries, of course. So we're the National Association and the voice of professional planners in Canada. And so thank you for having me today. I just want to mention I'm joining you from the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe, just outside of Ottawa, Canada's capital. So this land has really benefited from stewardship of Indigenous peoples. And Ottawa is also home to the largest Inuit population south of the Arctic, as well as Métis and many others from diverse First Nations. I mention this as I want to highlight the significant urban populations of Indigenous peoples here and around the world's cities who are critically important to include and prioritize in any conversations on the built environment and sustainability. In preparing for today, I was reflecting on one of my favorite things, which is if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. And this has guided my own work over the last 20 years in the nonprofit sector. And it's also relevant in thinking about the decade of action and the Sustainable Development Goals. As many presenters have already provided such rich examples on the environment, on applied planning and engagement in communities around the world, I didn't feel like I could say any more than what has already been said. It's been really inspiring. So I'd like to take a few moments to highlight how I see non-governmental organizations contributing and how they're essential to achieving the SDGs. You know, when approaching challenges as complex and interconnected as the ones we're facing, we need organizations that can plan and implement policies that have longer trajectories than electoral cycles and that are prioritized above shareholder dividends. As a typical organization will have a 3 to 4 year strategic plan. However, the values of these organizations will span well beyond this time frame. In CIP's membership of professional planners, we have an ethical responsibility to protect the public interest. Our organization has national policies and a core commitment to addressing climate change, planning for healthy communities, advancing reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, and advocating for equity, diversity, and inclusion in the profession and in the work that we put forward. The approach to how we get our work done may change over time, but our values are always present. And this longer term outlook isn't unique to CIP, it's a common governance trait of many nonprofits. NGOs are also adept in the art of collaboration, which is a critical skill set, probably more now than ever. We work closely with our allied professions and stakeholders to advance our policy objectives, recognizing and respecting the strengths and perspectives others bring to the table. When our organization discusses issues of rapid urbanization through a climate change lens, we're aware we bring a certain expertise and perspective, but not the only one. Nonprofits are skilled in maximizing financial and human resources. They also tend to be more innovative, creative, and agile with their approaches to problem solving. For instance, when CIP decided to develop a carbon neutrality plan, we didn't have a time-consuming bureaucracy to navigate. We just did it. Similarly, when we added an ESG criteria to our investment policy, there's so many ways an organization can adopt the SDG principles and principles of sustainability in internal and external systems. So I just participated in the last session, and Ms. Diallo, the head of UN's NGO relations, made an excellent presentation in which she mentioned that NGOs have a responsibility to show up and work together. And so to that, I'd just encourage the UN, all levels of government, academia, and the private sector to seek out more opportunities to partner with NGOs. Society would also see an expansion in the diversity of leadership and participation by supporting capacity building of local organizations. Our societal and environmental problems can seem overwhelming and daunting, and NGOs are a unique resource, positioned to engage, influence, and inspire citizens in all levels of government to help build a more sustainable and equitable society, which will have lasting benefits beyond 2030. So working together, I truly think we will go further. And so thank you for the opportunity. I'm very passionate about this. And in the chat box, I will include a new resource we've just put together about how associations and nonprofits can incorporate more environmental goals and advance climate change in their work. So if you belong to an organization, I would highlight and encourage you to bring this document to them because I think there's a lot of great ideas in it.
Many thanks, Beth, for bringing this perspective as well to enrich the panel even more. Now, from the title, we'll have a different topic, but I will let him speak. Sriram Natarajan, expert on food security. Sriram?
Yes.
Yes, you have the floor, please. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Edmundo. I have a share screen here. Can I put it on?
Please go ahead. 5 minutes, please.
Yes. Greetings to all of you, and thanks for the invitation to present some ideas on food security in the context of the new urban agenda. Many participants have made reference to urban farming in the context of paradigm shifts in urban planning, urban landscaping, green cities, and so on. In this presentation, I'll try to relate three concerns: the right to food in the context of the SDGs, urban food system in the light of the urban agenda, and urban agriculture and farming contribution to sustainability and resilience of cities. We all know that of all human needs, food is the most basic. And this was recognized way back in 1948 in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as the right to feed or the freedom of hunger. And this was reiterated in global policy over the course of the past 6 decades or more, with the MDGs 1 and 2, which were the precursors of the SDGs, attaining or more or less achieving the goals of halving extreme poverty and the proportion of undernourished people. The SDGs have a really challenging goal here, targets of 1 and 2, namely to completely end hunger and end poverty. But the current COVID crisis seems to make this challenge even more formidable. The enormity or the magnitude of the problem of food insecurity around the world is highlighted in this chart prepared by the FAO. This is a pre-COVID estimate of the numbers of people in various forms of food insecurity. We have over 800 million people who are chronically undernourished, and about 98% of them live in developing countries. And all the other data are not very encouraging though. But developing countries are not the only problem areas as regards food security. Even though 95% of the additional global urban population will be in developing countries, and rural and urban food security issues are going to be predominant, we see signs of cracks in developed economies. Take the case of USA, for example. Pre-COVID estimates of households who were food insecure was about 10%, and those households with children was about 15%. By June 2020, these numbers had doubled. And in the EU 28, the conditions that give rise to food security are already in place. Poverty and social exclusion affects around 9% of the population, with a further 11% as the risk of falling into poverty and social exclusion. We have also a large emerging precariat class, those with insecure livelihoods, shrinking employment prospects, increasing inequality, a high proportion of income absorbed by non-food essential expenditure. Together, all these form perfect condition for food insecurity to manifest. The current pandemic has likely intensified trends in this direction and can be expected to expose other fault lines that impinge on social and economic stability. So we have a new food urban agenda in which food production is in urban and peri-urban areas are given a boost. The promotion and integration of food security with the nutritional needs of urban residents, particularly the urban poor, and sustainable food security across urban, peri-urban, and rural areas and implementing other policies in urban areas to maximize efficiency and minimize waste are very important in the paragraph 123 of the new urban agenda, which focuses exclusively on the aspect of food. Industrial agriculture.
1 minute, please.
Yes, I will just go to urban farming and urban food systems, which are practiced widely in both developing and developed countries. In China, for example, it's a very well organized and developed, but in other poor Asian and African countries too, urban agriculture or urban farming is quite significant, even though it doesn't receive enough attention. For example, in Kampala, over 40% of the urban food supply comes from within the city and the peri-urban areas. And in an estimate of the participation rates in Africa and Eurasian transition countries put the figure at about 11 to 69%. In the developed world, community gardens have had a long history providing for food during the war years. A rich and diverse set of urban farm typologies have recently emerged, from fully fledged commercial enterprises utilizing cutting-edge information and digital technologies, hydroponic and aquaponic systems, to the more traditional terrace gardens producing organic and safe food. Vertical farming is booming by the day in densely populated cities. I have a small example to give here on community urban agriculture, which addresses several SDG goals. Not just.
Sriram, can you please conclude, because we're running out of time?
As the slide shows, several aspects of SDGs are taken care of. Somebody reviewed the model and found out that about 8 SDGs were addressed, including consumption patterns, sustainable development, and ensuring healthy lives. To conclude, I would just say that the urban food movement can take the lead in altering food patterns towards safe and healthy food, reduce carbon footprint by shortening supply chains and cold storage, as well as move away from industrial agriculture towards agroecological and biodiverse food systems, guaranteeing the right and the means to food. A hunger-free city can truly be a compassionate one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing food into the discussion. The issue of urban food security goes well beyond just bringing food products from rural areas. It's much more complex than this. Even the Food and Agriculture Organization, which traditionally had a focus on rural areas, now has also an urban program. So it was important to bring food into the discussion. Now, let me please pass the floor to Ambika Chawla, expert in climate change and emergencies. 5 minutes, please, Ambika. Ambika, I can see you.
Okay.
But
okay.
Your
Now, can you hear
mic.
me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Great. So for this talk, I will discuss the important role of multi-stakeholder partnerships to finance low carbon and climate resilient cities. Around the world, city governments are setting ambitious targets to reduce their carbon emissions while increasing investments in climate resilient infrastructure. Just last week, mayors from 12 cities, as part of the C40 network, came forward with a declaration called Divesting from Fossil Fuels, Investing in a Sustainable Future, where they pledged to divest financial assets from fossil fuel companies in order to channel investments into the green economy, along with initiatives to tackle climate change. Another network of cities is the Carbon Neutral Cities Alliance, which is working to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 80% or more by 2050 or sooner. As part of the alliance, cities like Vancouver, Adelaide, and Copenhagen aim for zero carbon emissions by 2050, while cities such as Rio de Janeiro, Boulder, and Yokohama have a target to reduce their emissions by 80% by 2050. Cities in low and middle income countries are also making efforts to become low carbon urban centers. Shanghai is working to become a low carbon city by transitioning to green buildings by improving energy efficiency in industry and by promoting energy savings campaigns for its residents. Da Nang City in Vietnam is now working to transition to renewable energy and has introduced projects to recycle organic waste and plans to implement urban agriculture projects throughout the city. Given that most municipal governments around the world tend to be under-resourced, with their budgets increasingly constrained due to the COVID-19 pandemic, multi-stakeholder partnerships will be vital to channel much-needed finances towards low carbon and climate resilient initiatives. Channeling sustainable sources of financing for environmentally friendly initiatives will be vital for cities to not only build resilience to climate change, but to also help them achieve their sustainable development goals. By building strategic partnerships with different actors, such as UN agencies, regional and international development banks, private companies, and other cities in the developed and developing world, city governments can secure more financial resources as they move to become low carbon and climate resilient cities. One example of a multi-stakeholder partnership which can bring financing to climate-friendly initiatives is the public-private partnership and the public-private people partnership arrangement. A public-private people partnership arrangement is more inclusive and through a participatory process engages local community groups in the planning and implementation of a PPP. Sister city partnerships between cities in the developing and developed world can not only lead to the sharing of ideas about innovations for low carbon and climate resilient infrastructure, also facilitate much needed investments for green infrastructure in cities. The Beijing-Copenhagen Sister City Partnership is an example of a partnership which aims to help these capital cities reach their targets to cut emissions through increased collaboration in the areas of energy efficiency, renewable energy, and flood management. Strategic partnerships with UN agencies can bring financial resources to underfinanced cities in need of climate-smart infrastructure. For example, international funding schemes with the Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, such as the Green Climate Fund, can facilitate investments for climate mitigation and adaptation projects and programs. Today's cities around the world face manifold challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic has not only had a negative impact on public health, but has also disrupted economic livelihoods and municipal budgets, while leading to overburdened public services. And climate-induced migration to rapidly urbanizing urban centers is yet another challenge, overstressing urban areas that are already limited in their capacities to provide basic social services, security, and infrastructure to their dwellers. City governments cannot address these challenges alone. The building of strategic partnerships with other actors will not only help these cities become low carbon and climate resilient cities, but will also strengthen their capacities to tackle their most pressing local level challenges.
Hello, I can't hear you. Ambika? Hello?
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Oh.
Yeah, but if you can please conclude, because we're beyond the 5 minutes.
Okay, so I'm sorry, what part did you not hear?
Hi, Ambika. I think it's all okay on our end.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Have you finished? Well,
yes.
I could see your movement, but I couldn't hear. I think I understand that you finished, and thank you for bringing all this wealth of information about many other cities with very detailed examples around the world. Now we have concluded the speakers, and in the list I have also include some panelists. The panelists, as I understand, they should in principle respond to what they heard from the speakers, but I think that they are also allowed to present new ideas, to make a presentation. I have 3 names in the list. I can see that Rajiv Mishra is here. I also have Barry Morishita and Fabio Carbone, but I think Barry, the first one, is not here. Is Barry there? If yes, can you please say hello?
Hello, I'm Dan. I'm going to speak for Barry, if I could.
Yeah. Yeah, can Dan?
Yes, I'm speaking. You can hear me, right?
Yes, you're going to speak for Barry.
Yes, Barry couldn't make it. So, or if you're
Okay,
ready,
so please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take
5
my
minutes,
lesson, 5
please.
minutes.
Thank you.
Betcha. Here we go. So, hello, I'm Dan Root. I'm the CEO of Alberta Urban Municipalities Association, AUMA, and as you noted, I'm sitting in for President Barry Morishita. I'm here today. I'm going to respond a little bit to the panelists, but more talk about a little bit of a different idea, concept, and hopefully it's something that maybe some of you will kind of gravitate to. So we're here today. AUMA represents the province of Alberta, Canada's cities, towns, and villages, and it's where about 85% of the Albertans live. So as you know, municipalities represent the infrastructure and services that Canadians rely on to work, play, and simply live their day-to-day lives. We take responsibility as stewards of sustainability very seriously because this has direct impacts at the local level on all of our lives on a daily basis. So at AUMA, we've long advocated and provide for funding for projects that promote energy efficiency and sustainable renewable energy. We're not, in Alberta, we're not so much about removal of fossil fuels, but we're very much about renewable energies and at the same time, a balance and efficiency. So today I'd like to discuss 2 UN Habitat resolutions, those being resolutions 26 and 27 that address urban resiliency strategy and sustainable energy sources. Both of those issues are something that I, as a representative of urban municipalities in Alberta, experienced firsthand. So in Alberta, in 2018, actually this is in Canada, in 2018, homes and commercial buildings contributed 13% of Canada's greenhouse gas. And other jurisdictions across the world would like to see the same rates. The upfront cost of energy efficiency upgrades and renewable energy installations on homes and commercial buildings are a significant barrier for property owners. So also in municipalities in Alberta and Canada, with aging inefficient public infrastructure and equipment that requires immediate attention. Too many municipalities already struggle with operational costs. So municipalities must support and encourage property owners in their communities to increase their energy efficiency and use renewable energy on their own buildings to reduce GHG emissions. So there is an opportunity. That opportunity is by emphasizing and supporting universal access to energy efficiency and sustainable energy practices, and raise the bar for both health, safety, and comfort. We don't need to think short-term and make repeated inefficient investment in infrastructure. We have the ability to contribute to sustainable urbanization through creative approaches. Innovative approaches to financing for these projects. And we have a program we started that's called Property Assessed Clean Energy. It's also known as PACE, and it addresses these adoption barriers. It saves property owners money on energy costs and supports municipalities as they reach their sustainable goals. PACE is an innovative financing tool that enables property owners to pay for energy efficiency upgrades and renewable energy installations. This tool allows the projects to be repaid back to the municipality through property taxes at a very competitive interest rates. As an association for municipalities, we recognize this opportunity and currently doing our part to contribute to these solutions. In 2021, Alberta will become one of the first provinces in Canada to offer a PACE financing in the country. We are well positioned to be a leader in bringing PACE financing to commercial property owners. AUMA also operates a municipal climate action center, which will administrate the PACE program in Alberta, and that program is going to be known as the Clean Energy Improvement Program. It will increase building stock value, reduce energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, reduce energy costs, and provide healthier, more comfortable spaces for those who live in homes and buildings. From an economic point of view, and this is very important in our province right now, in addition to seeing the environmental benefits of the program, PACE will see economic benefits realized right through to the municipality. Over the past 10 years, PACE programs in the United States have created about 130 jobs. PACE depends on contractors, energy professionals located directly in the municipality to complete the energy and renewable energy installations. PACE is designed to be a stable program offered by municipalities. Traditional rebate programs are often short-term and depend on the limited amount of funding. PACE programs, on the other hand, are enabled by the municipality bylaw and enabled to be a long-term option where financing funds can be reinvested into new projects as repayments are made from the commercial entities and residents. We're looking to pay several municipalities in Alberta next year. This is one example of a new approach. The municipalities are well positioned to take advantage, and we can show how buildings are operated, constructed, and retrofitted to focus on both short-term and long-term benefits.
Then you need to wrap up in a minute, please.
You betcha. So we're going to help them all in every way, and through this, and it's going to create economies of scale, employment, and increase our drive our economy in the province. So in closing, we support efforts on a national and a local scale to work towards affordable, reliable, and modern energy services and sustainable energy practices in public buildings, infrastructure, and facilities. I thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks a lot, Dan, for bringing the perspective of Alberta. Now I will pass the floor to Rajiv Mishra, Director General of National Mission for Clean Ganga, India. Rajiv, please, 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much for the invite and excellent presentations. I was in a position to listen to. Number of speakers have actually, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, right. See, several speakers so far have flagged the issue of water resilient cities and also management of water. Water is certainly a very important resource for the city. So some of my experiences and some of the work which we are doing in the mission, I would like to take you to the aspect of river cities and draw the attention on the management of river and city together. As some of you may be aware, the national river of our country, that's India, is River Ganga. It's a long river, it's 2,500 kilometer long river, and it's also the largest basin. Almost 50% of our country's population is within this basin. So it becomes really very important for us to look at this river, its health, and also the cities or the urban area on the bank of this river, how they contribute to the health of river or the pollution to the river. So primarily the urban missions which are there in the government at the national level as well as at the provincial level or at the local level, and also the water mission, we are actually trying to integrate all of them. As time is very short, I will basically try to highlight few aspects of these river cities. We are trying to look at the cities which have grown on the bank of the river, but somehow, as we are all aware, not only in India, in most of the cities across the world, major cities have grown on the bank of river, but sometimes in some of the cases, the health of the river is not really very good, or the cities really do not contribute to the health of the river. Rather, the way we are managing the water or the solid waste, actually it becomes a kind of hazard to the river. And that is where in what we are trying to do is trying to look at the best management part, both liquid and solid, in a more sustainable way. And the idea is also to bring certain policies and programs to develop or to move from the linear economy to the circular economy. We had actually looked at the previous mission and the state of the cities on the bank of the river, and we found that a very large part, almost 50% of the wastewater goes into the water body and the river without proper treatment. So I think that is something which is very important, and learning from the past experience, because unless you built in a capacity to operate and manage these assets, these STPs, it becomes it's not really very sustainable. So we have tried to look at bringing the long-term, at least 15-year requirement to be built, and to be built in a more aggressive way, and have a good combination of centralized as well as decentralized thing. As you know, the peri-urban areas grow, and then without proper waste management, they also add to the problem. So we have introduced PPP in this sector, and then that's really basically paying for the performance, because their investment is involved, and unless they run them well, meet the standard, they won't be able to get that payment. That's one. Second thing, we are trying to improve governance of the wastewater management and later on solid waste management in the city. So there is a trend now to go for city-wide contract on the PPP mode, and that's working well. Of course, there are challenges, and then we have to really improve the capacity of the urban local body. Solid waste also, we are trying to bring in the several projects on the waste to energy, and then utilizing these things so that there is a kind of inherent market developed and a kind of revenue stream is developed to sustain all these efforts. So that's what is happening. Other aspect of the river management and city management is we have to look at the river front as part of the city, as a kind of important resource for the city. In fact, in the challenge of the COVID, several speakers have talked, and then the challenge to the public space, the good public space is really felt and underscored by many of the panelists. And then if a good riverfront is there, well-managed riverfront can be a really nice public space for the city. So under our mission, we are actually trying to improve the riverfront in an ecological manner and also develop a kind of linkage. So that's an area where economy as well as ecology can thrive. Third aspect I would like to highlight is the idea of urban wetland. As we all know, when we look at the indigenous resilience in the landscape of the city, that used to happen from the wetlands, the water bodies in the urban setup. So over a period of time, due to rapid urbanization, pressure of population.
1 minute, please.
Yeah, some of these wetlands are being lost. So we are trying to build up a kind of good database for the urban wetland, and also develop a kind of tool. We have developed toolkit and capacity building of the urban managers, because often they are not very sensitive to that. And then planning for the river city, we are looking at the master plan. At present, Delhi master plan is being revised. So instead of environment being on the periphery, environment is now being put on the core of the master plan for 2040. The master plan which is being revised. So we are looking at all the master plans in different cities and trying to bringing a kind of sensitivity for river centric master plan, or not just river, the water management or water resilient cities. It should come through from the master plan. And last, before I end, collaborative partnership is the key. I mean, many of the people have talked about a stakeholder engagement. A task of this kind or this size can only be done if we have a good partnership among different governments, among NGOs, among common public, through various kinds of voluntary agencies coming to the river bank, cleaning it up, voluntarily trying to help the government. So I think that's again something which is very important, and that's what we are trying to build in a kind of consensus and collaborative partnership. Thank you. These were some of the ideas. I tried to bring the river as a center of the city, and river and city, how we can plan together, how we can develop both, and then move ahead to improve urbanization, economy, as also sustainable environment in the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. This was the last presentation. It's interesting that the very first presentation was about water, and the last one is also about water. Of course, as we know, water is crucial for urban development, but also between the first and the last presentation, we had many other topics, many perspectives on the environment and connections among topics. We do not have time to open the debate, but I'm sure that we are taking home a wealth of knowledge. The environment is crucial to the urban economy. Actually, both are combined within the concept of sustainability together with social development. So I think that this session provided a key contribution to the forum, in my opinion, and thanks a lot for all the presenters. And so we conclude here. Thank you very much, and thanks also again for the organizers for making all this possible. So good afternoon to all, or good evening in my case as well, or good night, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Bye-bye from me.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, Edmundo,
Bye-bye.
for your wonderful job.
Thank you all.
Thank you again. We are now both rooms are reconvening to discuss the resolution. Alex, is that right?
Yes, just a nice shout out to, we had quite a few volunteers helping us out today with note taking and social media. Volunteers, maybe if you want to just kind of give a wave there on camera. I don't know if they're still here.